It's simple, really. Great stories with a good cup of tea. It's the Tea with Mike show. Quote unquote normal, regular, everyday life.
Yes. So when I'm not redistributing pressed chicken paste to the masses, I work in politics in Alberta here for well, I guess I can say it now. I had been kind of coy about where I work just in case, because working as a political staffer, you're kind of meant to be in the background. But Rachel Notley shared one of the Nugget articles saying, "Oh, this guy's on our team," so I can proudly say that I work for the Alberta NDP. I've worked here for about 2.5 years, and since I graduated from university, and that lines up a lot with like a lot of the change that I want to do in the world and a lot of the past work that I've done.
Awesome. So let's take it back a little bit. So you mentioned that you went to the University of Alberta. What did you take? Why did you choose to take that course, and how has it helped you transition into what you're currently doing?
Yeah. So, when I actually started all throughout high school, I really wanted to be a teacher because I thought that it would be just such a wonderful career. And when I got to university, it's not that I didn't like teaching anymore. It's just that I found sociology and thought that it was a better fit because I obviously have tons of respect for a lot of the teachers and what they have to do, right? Especially a first year teacher that has to design basically your entire lesson plan while you're at the bottom of the pay scale and working like 12-hour days. But yeah, I basically just took an intro to sociology class, and from there I switched my major over. And I don't know, I like to call sociology kind of like professional people watching, because you learn a lot about like how like you learn the theory about how social systems work and how people interact with each other and the reasons behind that. And I try to take that into what I do now, which is, again, it's politics. It's not everybody in politics has a political science degree, although we lean on those folks quite a bit about the technical parts of the job. But, a lot of my colleagues, some of them have science degrees, some of them are social workers. And it's nice to have a good mix of people that can, kind of address politics from different perspectives.
Also, awesome. And then, so what interested you about politics? Was it always a part of your life, or was it someone you met, or was it family
Yeah.
history?
So I'd always been like very into politics and elections as a kid. When most kids would like watch sports at home, I would just sit like right in front of the TV, face glued to watching like a city election happen, and was teased for it, obviously. But I think starting in grade six is in Alberta is when we do the government and politics curriculum. And as it actually happened, the year I was in grade six in 2004, all three orders of government had an election in that year. So I was able to see like a city, a province, and a federal election all within that year. And I think that was really what kicked off me really enjoying politics. But I had always considered it a hobby until this job opportunity came available. I joined the NDP when I was 17, when I was in high school, and Jack Layton was running the party in the 2011 election, and kind of have been volunteering since then. And now it's my career.
Also, so politics is very broad. Is there a specific thing within it that you're focused on, or that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think, and I think about this a lot. Some people, I think everybody joins politics or gets politically involved because they have a reason or something that they want to change. And essentially, I had been living in Alberta, which, up until 2015 had been run by one government for 43 years. And it was not a progressive government, not a government that I saw myself represented in. So that's why I thought, my mom at the time said it was maybe because I was a bit of a contrarian and wanted to join the fourth party in the legislature because I liked being the underdog. But I really did, like, I really was attracted to the values that New Democrats have, and just wanting to kind of push for reforms, specifically around economic policy. I think that the right side of politics has had a monopoly on saying that they know how money works and they know how the economy works. But I've really, the left is already strong at people trust us on healthcare, on education, on delivering social services. But I really wanted to try to impress upon people that there is a left-wing case for the economy, and that, working to support each other through like economic policies can actually like net a lot of good results.
Awesome. And then if you had to put it down to just like one single thing, what do you enjoy the most about what you do? Is it the people you meet? Is it the work you do? Is it a specific skill that you learned at the University of Alberta? Anything?
Yeah, there is so much. The one thing I'd have to say is just seeing someone like one of our constituents when we're able to help them, when something works out for them. I think a lot of people have gotten a little jaded with politics, or they think that, oh, politicians are all out just for fame and I can't be helped, or it's such a big system. So when someone comes in with a concern and we're able to help them, just seeing their faith restored in the political system and the political process is absolutely why I keep doing this.
Awesome, man. And then, so obviously we're coming to the end of one decade and opening the start of a new decade, which only happens obviously once every 10 years. Well, what are some of the things you've got planned in 2020 moving forward?
Oh boy. Well, 2020 will be a lot of a planning year for me. I've announced that I'm running for the Edmonton City Council for a seat in the year after that in 2021, and I am not running to lose, right? So I'm making sure that I'm planning it years in advance. I have a team that is excited, and I just feel so lucky that they want to be on board, right? Like trying to convince someone to drop what they're doing to help your personal goals is
definitely it's just not easy in anything.
Yeah, and I almost can't show enough gratitude to supporters. It's so like it just warms my heart so much. But so next year will be a lot of planning. I'll take some time off to watch the U.S. election and hold my breath for that one. But yeah, next year will be a lot of kind of setting up, and then 2021 is go time.
How expensive is it to put together a political campaign, even at the grassroots level?
Yeah, and actually, that's a good question, because that's why I had considered running 4 years ago, but decided not to, mostly because of financial reasons. There are new rules with elections that set a cap on how much you can spend. In the past, candidates have won. The candidate, or the incumbent sitting councillor that I'll be challenging, his campaign cost 11,000 last time, but other campaigns in that same race cost as much as 120,000. So my target is probably around the 15 to 20 mark, but if we can raise more, I'm happy to have it.
And then how challenging is it to raise funds, especially in an it looks like an economic downturn, right? There's a little bit of instability in Alberta.
Yeah, I think it will be tough. We can't start fundraising until January 1st, 2021. So I'll get a bigger picture for how that looks then. But, I've always thought you almost have to convince people that it's an investment to kind of convince them, like, if this is the platform you want, if this is the type of representation you want at the city, then like it is in your best interest to fund these types of efforts, right? And of course, like once someone's elected, government works for you, and it doesn't cost anything, but it's kind of getting people to buy in to an idea or to a movement, especially because at the city level, they don't have any of the same tax credits that the provincial and the federal level do. So if you donate $100 to my campaign, it costs you $100. So that it's a lot to try to ask of someone, but essentially it's framing it around it's an investment for this type of city you want to see.
Awesome. And then so for those, including myself, that don't really know, like where are some of the areas that this money that people give over because they believe in what you're trying to achieve, where does some of that money like go?
Yeah, certainly at a city level, I think it's a bit of a waste of money to do like billboards or bus stops, especially because in Edmonton, if they don't have a replacement ad, your ad will stay up. Like there are still a few city councilor ads on bus stops from 2 years ago.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, and especially because some of those candidates didn't win. Imagine having to drive past that every day as a reminder that you didn't win your election. But I think like the bulk of the purchase would be, I think, of course, Facebook is where you can reach people. So Facebook ads would take a chunk of it. Lawn signs certainly are expensive. It costs about $6 a lawn sign for the sign itself and the H-frame, the metal rod that it goes in. So that would be a big expense. No, and volunteer appreciation as well. I think
Mhm.
if you're running a campaign, they need to be well fed and just as a way to show appreciation because not to give away campaign strategy, but like the secret to winning is door knocking, right? It's making sure you get in front of as many voters as possible. So making sure that you have a team of volunteers that's ready to go out with your message and promote you to voters. They need to be fueled and energized for that. So I want to dedicate a significant portion of the budget to making sure that they're treated well.
And if you really think about it, as we move forward and not backwards, that's gonna become more of a challenging part of the campaign because people are less the more hesitant, I guess, about opening the door to people they don't know, right?
It is certainly, and there, I've door knocked for so many campaigns at this point, and there are times that you'll see like curtains rustling in their front window, but they never come to the door, and I'm like, I know you're home, like but I understand, right? Like people may not feel comfortable talking to someone they weren't expecting, so you always have to be like really nice and unassuming on the door so you don't freak them out, and that's something that I've had to learn as well because I'm so interested in like really getting into the weeds of policy, but if I just start shouting facts at people, they get very scared. So it's about softening that message or making it something that they can relate to. And I think that's where like digital advertising comes in, right? And
It's more
yeah, almost 90% of Albertans have a Facebook account, so you have to meet them where they are. And there are things like Facebook groups popping up and different, I think different really community-led ways that you can engage with people that you never used to be able to.
awesome. And then, so going back to kind of your first experience of door knocking, like answer the question how you want to answer the question, obviously, but how did you react to that first time you knocked and someone gave you a negative response back, or even worse, they were very aggressive and that sort of thing? How do you handle that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I will say off the top, it does not happen as much as people think. You will get one aggressive person probably every 4 or 5 hours worth of door knocking. So it's really not often. Even a lot of Albertans that don't, have time, they'll be fairly polite, right? They'll be like, "Oh, no, thanks, I'm not interested." But essentially, you have to be nice back, right? Like I sometimes have certainly felt that urge to want to debate or argue, but if someone comes at you hot from the jump, you're not going to be able to convince
You
them,
waste
right?
time, and you could hit 2 or 3 more houses, and maybe one of those 3 people is potentially interested in learning more, right? So, yeah.
Exactly. You just have to be like, well, thank you for your time. Have a great day. You always want to try to drop off the literature still. So even if someone like slams the door, I'll just kind of tuck the flyer in their mailbox and then head out on my way.
Interesting. So, as I was learning a little bit about you, like online, obviously, as it is these days, I learned that you have a podcast.
I do, and it's a new baby podcast, and actually it couldn't have come at a better time, the Nugget tweet, because our subscribers multiplied by 10, which is very frightening to suddenly have 10 times the number of fans. But it's been such a good journey. It's called Heart Half Full, and it's about just like finding hope and positivity because the world is it's frustrating right now, right? And you see a lot of bad news, and I don't think that you should ignore that. I don't think that it's right to kind of take yourself out of the discourse, but you need a break, right? You need a place where you can recharge. And my co-host Vic and I have already been exploring like heavier topics, but trying to find like a way through them, right? Like 2 weeks ago, our episode was about grief, but instead of kind of like sitting in that grief and the early stages of it, we talk about what types of things help us heal from it and move through it because it's something that every single person will experience, right? And we definitely have to have the disclaimer that neither of us are doctors or medical professionals. It's just talking about our own advice and things that we've found helpful.
So, what are some of the other topics of conversation have you talked about on the podcast?
We so far have covered self-care as a concept, and that one we went. I really like that episode because instead of just talking about like bubble baths and hot chocolate, which is, those are nice types of self-care, but we talked about how brushing your teeth regularly is self-care and showering is self-care, and it all kind of contributes to self-love and well-being. We've talked about anticipatory anxiety, which I have, which is very much like when you feel that you have so much to do that you're almost overwhelmed and can't do any of it. Strategies for combating that. We've talked about the health benefits of public art and of creating art. And we have a long list of exciting things to talk about. A bit of a sneak peek for next week's episode. We'll be talking about Mr. Rogers.
Nice. So is the podcast in a specific niche category area, or is it pretty general? Is it stuff that you don't talk about? I'm trying.
Yeah, well, we try to keep it like the topics are pretty wide open. The only real rule is that we try to keep it positive. Like we'll talk about politics sometimes, but more the good side of it, or politicians that are doing good things. But in iTunes, we're under the category of health and fitness, so it's really anything to do with your health, your well-being, just how to essentially recharge. And that's why it comes out on Monday mornings, because it can be a very hard day for a lot of people that work like a Monday to Friday. So it's kind of get off to the right start for the week.
Awesome. And so how long has the podcast been running? That sort of thing. Where are you hoping to take it?
Yeah. So it's only about 2 months old.
Wow.
It premiered on October 7th. So, we'll have, we're doing one a week. So we'll hit our 25th episode by early April. And, I have plans to, continue it for as long as possible, and hopefully eventually, we said we didn't want to do guests at first to kind of get our rhythms in sync, but eventually we'll want to have on like experts or people that have experienced certain things and kind of grow it from there. And I kind of like that about podcasts. You start with one idea, but then it kind of blooms into a new type of thing, especially as you're getting feedback from listeners. And so
yeah.
Exactly. I'm open to kind of going any direction it takes us.
I'm asking lots of questions because I'm trying to pick up some tips, because I have a podcast too, right? So what platforms is the podcast on?
Yeah, so it's pretty much everywhere you can find podcasts. We use Podbean as our host essentially. So the host account it'll spread it out to a bunch of different ones.
Yep.
Like it puts it on iTunes and Spotify for us, and then I had to upload to like Podcast Addict and a couple different ones. But we say at the end of every episode, if someone has a podcatcher of their choice that it's not on, just message us and we'll get it on there. We were added to Stitcher recently, so kind of all the big ones.
Are you on Anchor?
I actually don't know if it's. I know some ones like Overcast use iTunes kind of as like a bootleg for it. So if Anchor uses that one, then we might be.
I'm trying to. How do you see if your podcast is on iTunes? You just gotta search for it.
Yeah, there's like a podcast app. Well, it's built into iPhones, but you'd have to get the podcast or the Apple Podcast app if you don't have an iPhone.
Let's see. Because I don't feel like my podcast is on all of the platforms.
What? Where do you host it?
Anchor.
Okay.
Hang on.
Oh, it's on Overcast. That's good. I just because I use a bit of a niche podcast for it, and it's on there, so that's a good sign.
So it's on Spotify.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. So my podcast is on Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, Stitcher. So I need to get it on iTunes. I'm missing out. Right.
Yes. Well, iTunes is the big one because then you can get on like the charts as well, which has been again, seeing the day after the Nugget tweet went viral. I was considering, I didn't know whether I wanted to plug something beneath the tweet because I think that's kind of tacky, but my friends were like, well, you have to plug your podcast. So I did, and we went from like 40 listeners an episode to more than 400. So
That's crazy, dude.
it was, again, just very good timing.
Awesome. And then so when you're not podcasting and you're not working in politics, what do you do for self-care and just relaxing?
Yeah, I've talked about this a bit on the pod, but I'm really trying to get back into like really like I want to say almost like meaningful television. When I was younger, I would watch just like shows I'd seen a million times, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if it ever like really contributed to my well-being. But I've tried like I see a lot of like cinematic value in television, especially the way it is today. So that's things like Westworld, or I'm watching The Mandalorian right now, which is great. Baby Yoda convinced me to get Disney Plus, so I will listen to Baby Yoda. And I know that's kind of boring to say TV, but it's just like those really good, like juicy, full of kind of texture episodes where there's backstory. I also like, well, I had a dog for a while. She passed away this year, sadly, but I would always take her on walks, and I love seeing all my friends' dogs. I'll probably get another dog in the future, but every time I hear a friend has a dog, I just run over to their house to give it a hug, and play with dogs. But yeah, and the podcast itself is even a form of self-care, just by being able to research something and put it out into the world. And Victoria and I,
yeah.
Yeah, and Victoria and I have known each other for God, probably like 5 or 6 years now. And she actually she was my campaign manager when I ran for president of my students' union a few years ago. So she like just getting to spend more time with her and with friends is really good.
Also, and then so the podcast. So how is your podcast set up? Do you just where do you record from? What equipment?
Yeah. So Vic is still a student at the U of A, and they have kind of like a maker space. It's called Subcreate, I think, or Sub. I don't remember, some kind of pun, but they have like a maker space that has like backdrops for filming. They have mics and all of that. So we're set up there. I'm looking to get like microphones and a setup for when she graduates, and look at how we can take it from there. But it's pretty cool. It's like a semi soundproof room with like those blockers on the walls, and it's a free space to use for undergrads at the U of A. So we're really fortunate to have that space.
Awesome, man. And then as we close out the episode, got any closing thoughts?
Oh God, that's a big question. I mean, I think that people should definitely, I mean, if people are watching this, then they're already podcast listeners, but it just like, I don't know, it's just the way that I've been able to consume news more responsibly. I find that I'm not scrolling on social media as much anymore. And of course, like a social media algorithm will put things in front of you that they want you to see. So being able to get news from podcasts, I can listen to it on the drive to work or home, and being able to just kind of curate what I'm taking in, and being able to listen to a variety of perspectives without getting overwhelmed is yeah, I think everybody should be into podcasting.
Yeah, because even though I like listening to the radio, like it does get boring listening to the same songs on repeat at literally at the same time, like every day.
Exactly.
On a cycle. I think it's crazy that these days that there's not even a portion of the day that's dedicated to or at least on the radio stations that I listen to, the discovery of like new music and up and coming things.
Oh, absolutely. And Spotify will curate new music playlists for you now. So music radio has become, I think, a bit of a thing of the past, but talk show radio is still very cool. But a lot of them will kind of they'll have their show live, and then they'll make it available as a podcast episode. And that's really cool because it's hard to catch things live in such a busy world.
Awesome, man. Well, so thanks for being on Tea with Mike episode 37. Good luck with everything you've got going on in the podcast, and I'll definitely check it out. Have a great day, man.
Thanks, you too.
It's the Tea with Mike show.